Ian, thanks for joining us. Now, that Saturday night, tell us, how did you first find out about the fire and what did you do?
We had my telephone from a friend and immediately jumped in the car and rushed up here. And by that time there was actually quite a crowd. The crowd were strangely quite quiet and it was very emotional. Some people were crying, and I get emotional just talking about it now, actually. The scene that greeted us when we arrived was quite horrific. The roof was a blazing inferno, and I mean, nobody could get near it. One of our elders, Drew Wallace, was also a member of the fire brigade, and he had gone in and managed to get the Bible, but took one look at the roof and immediately said nobody can go in there. It was just far too dangerous. But the fire brigade managed to stop the fire getting into the tower at least. So that was one part of the church we didn't have to renew. But the pillars inside the church had gone from being about 3 feet in diameter to being about 1 foot in diameter. Just such was the heat from the burning timber. Of course, the timber had been there for years and the church is heated, so it was very dry, but the wind was a factor too. There was quite a high wind, and as soon as the wind gripped the fire, it just raged through the building.
So, you could probably tell by the size of the fire that the church was going to be badly damaged. What were your thoughts when you came up and saw this?
Well, having stood and watched it for a while, Mr. Chalmers, our minister, was there obviously, and there was a bit of talk about rebuilding, and I think most people felt, even just at that point in time, that we would like to rebuild. But I don't think we realized just how much money was involved. Unfortunately, the building hadn't been totally insured, but we got quite a bit of insurance, and we raised money through grants, etc.
The morning after was a Sunday morning, a day when people normally come to church for worship. What did they do when they saw that the church was burnt down?
The next morning, Bill Chalmers, our minister, had organised that we would worship in the hall, and we were lucky to have a nice big hall to be able to do that. And people were stationed up beside the church, which was still smouldering, and they guided people towards the hall. Those who didn't know, but Dunbar being Dunbar, we didn't need social media. It was the sort of hot news in the town, really. We started to raise money, mainly by grants for the largest part of that, and of course there was insurance, but we still had quite a big gap. So we organised an appeal, and the response, particularly from other churches in the town, was quite incredible. They put quite a lot of money towards the appeal, and churches throughout Scotland, in fact, people whom we had no contact, they donated quite a bit of money as well. There was all sorts of fundraising went on. There was sponsored walks to Haddington. There were the first ploughman's lunch started because of the fire, and continues to this day. But people really responded willingly, and people who didn't normally come to church. It was amazing how many of them got involved. A lot of people felt that they didn't want a gap site to be here, but as it was basically just the walls standing, there was quite a bit to be done. There's quite a lot of work went on in the planning, and that took about a year before we got something sorted out, especially with insurance, etc. But Dunbar as a town really came together on this, and it was quite moving to see, actually. I still have a small piece of red sandstone with 2 nails welded as a cross, and somebody had been walking about, I think it was Andy Stephen, picked up bits of rock and nails and made them into these small crosses. And we have, you'll probably see later, charred embers of a cross, which we still have in the church, as a reminder of days gone by.
So for such a disaster to hit a church like that, many people in Dunbar must have thought that the church had come to an end. But here we are 33 years later, back in the church. So what happened? And what about prayer? How did prayer fit into this?
Very much so. There was, every Sunday we were in prayer, but there were also other meetings organized. But prayer was very important. Jesus Christ still had to be at the center of what we were trying to do. It wasn't just a building. It was a group of people.
Okay, so let's come back to present day. The church is still here, and you're still a member. So what's the best part about being in the church now?
It's the people that make this church, or any church. It's being able to worship with good friends, to be able to look along the row of chairs and know all the people virtually that come to church. The church is very active in terms of, we have started a food bank, but although the initiative came from the parish church, there are people from other churches, there are people from no church get involved in that, and it has fulfilled a very useful function in Dunbar, and particularly with the COVID-19 situation, the number of people using the food bank has gone up substantially. These days we have home groups, we have prayer meetings, and all sorts of things are going on. So it's still a very lively church, and we hope it will continue to be a lively church for a long time.